Welcome to Films and Stuff with your hosts, Pete Mitchell and Ethan Hunt.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Films and Stuff podcast. I'm Ethan, joined as always by most valuable Pete. Hey, Pete, how are you today?
I am great, buddy. How are you?
Everything is great as well. It is Saturday. That means one thing only. It's time for our weekly stream or skip segment. You know the rules. I know the rules. We've got some new listeners. Can you reiterate in like 20 seconds or less what exactly is our stream or skip segment all about?
Alrighty. So Ethan and I have prepared lists of TV shows for each other to watch. Every week we randomly assign each other one of those shows. We watch 2 episodes or 30 minutes if it's a feature-length program. And on that basis, we determine if that show is worthy of being streamed or skipped.
Okay. Without further ado, if you don't mind, I volunteer to go first. I was assigned by you a show on Disney Plus / Hulu called A Thousand Blows. It describes itself as a British historical drama. To give you a very good reference point, if you've seen Peaky Blinders, it is very similar to that. But I think that is the best reference point I can give to you, which is it takes place in the East End of London. This is the 1880s, but you kind of get the idea in terms of there's no mobile phones. As a result, this is about, let's say, I don't want to say petty crime. It's more of a crime syndicate. It is a crime syndicate of all females. They call themselves the 40 Elephants. They did things that were like what I would call shoplifting and trickery. They called it kind of heists. It also revolves around, I would say, like the B plot is kind of like the bare knuckles boxing world, which was transitioning from the time of just kind of like brawls set up in pubs to like a more sophisticated gentleman's boxing club where they wore the proper, leather boxing gloves and such. And then just kind of like the hijinks surrounded around that. So there is some historical context to it. The rest is fictionalized. 6 episodes. And I think that it is a skip in terms of the artistic pageantry and the quality. It's probably a mooch. If you were a huge fan of Peaky Blinders, you really like historical East End London in the 1880s, you're an aficionado of bare knuckle boxing, this may be your bag. For me, it's a little bit gray and dingy. And to be honest, the storylines are just a little bit analog. I mean, you get the idea that without any CCTV cameras, without like the normal kind of surveillance stuff that we think of today, it was relatively easy to just kind of break into one's house, take a bunch of silver, leave, and never be caught or seen again, right? So
Right.
those heists were, I guess, high stakes if and when they happened, right? I mean, obviously, a house owner could shoot you. There's a lot of clandestine getting away on carriages and stuff, which we think of like as a historical getaway car. But to be honest, it just came across as a little bit dumpy to me that I just didn't like seeing carriages racing off, and it's like, well, they'll never be caught. They've got a horse and carriage, like they've got like a 30-second head start. That's all they need. So no detective work, no clues, no tracking down people, stuff like that. Very well done. I did not recognize a lot of the cast. The only person I did recognize was the character Mary Carr, who's kind of one of the title characters.
Mm-hmm.
I think she played Princess Anne in The Crown. Apart from that, the cast is exceptional, but no one who is kind of like the A-list that you've recognized from, oh, I saw that person in Breaking Bad, or oh, that person's from The Force Awakens, something like that.
Right.
So my personal feeling is that this is a skip in terms of the quality, in terms of the overall entertainment value. It's probably a mooch. I cannot give it anything more than that. So that is A Thousand Blows on Disney Plus Hulu.
Okay, great. Let's say I've got the exact opposite. I have a show
Hmm.
on Apple TV called Smoke.
Yeah.
It is the new Taron Egerton drama slash thriller. The creator of the show is the same guy who did Blackbird,
Yep.
which was one of our earlier streamer skips from maybe two
With
years
all but
ago,
with also Taron Egerton,
with
right?
also Taron Egerton. So Smoke
Hmm.
is a show which follows an arson investigator, Egerton, who used to be a fireman, was caught in a fire, but then didn't want to give up the career in the fire department, so he switches over to arson investigator. And
Yep.
he's on the hunt for a serial arsonist.
Hmm.
And he's not having luck going after this arsonist. And so the police department sends over a detective to become his partner. And the detective is played by Journée Smollett.
Hmm.
And it's not been clear so far. There's only been 5 episodes out, but she's clearly got a past with fire. And or she may be in some kind of administrative trouble with the police department. So she gets quote unquote demoted to work with the fire department. So there's only been 5 episodes out so far. I've seen all 5 episodes. It is a very slow and very deliberate show, just like Blackbird was.
Ah, you wanted to say slow burn, but you didn't.
Exactly. And the reason I didn't say slow burn is because it's super, super dark. And I mean tonally. It's creepy. It feels kind of I don't want to say gross, but you feel kind of wrong. Something doesn't feel quite right, and you're not sure why. Do you know what I mean when I say that?
Yeah, I watched it as well. So I get your point. I would also say the filmography is very dark. You see
Yeah.
a lot of scenes where they sit in, like, man, like I feel like if you go to a government office, it's all like halogen lights and like
Yeah, this
very
was a
bright.
dingy office. Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and they're always kind of like sitting in the dark. He's always kind of like in his study. Like the lighting is very dark. I agree with you.
Yeah, yeah. So look, it's one of those shows that just it feels you feel like you're doing something wrong by watching it. That's how good it is. Like there's something
Oh,
it feels off. There's a lot of what I expect to be red herrings and
spoiler
a
alerts.
lot
Yeah.
of alternative suspects as to who the main arsonist is. At one point, Taron Egerton, correct, spoiler alert, gets accused of being an arsonist himself, and that's why he's not been able to quote unquote catch the bad guy. Again, it feels like Blackbird, but it just doesn't have that. It's something is missing. It doesn't have that X factor to it. I really like the show, but I hesitate to call it a must subscribe.
I think I think the hard part is the subject matter.
Yeah,
There's not a lot of arson shows or movies. So it definitely fills that gap. But then when you watch it, I think you realize why there's not a lot of arson shows and movies. And it's because, well, there's only so many, like every crime scene is basically the same. It's just a burnt down thing,
right. Yeah,
right? So, I mean, it's just not visually exciting to be like, oh, here's a tight angle of another burnt down thing. Like it's just kind of like very repetitive after a while. And I think that the series is very good and we can get into his character, but I think that it's a little bit too long. This could be wrapped up a little bit faster, I
right.
think, just because unless you're really going to make it a character based show and not an event based show, then you really need to slow down the amount of arson events and you really need to get into the psychology of a pyromaniac or why the person is doing this or something more than just kind of like the gratuitous violence and revenge and kind of like, I guess, underside element of of what's going on. But I feel like that's part of the reason that the show drags on a little bit, is that it's just kind of like the same pattern again and again. Okay, phone call, something burned down. Let's go investigate it. Let's have some very tight angles of the stuff burned. There's not a whole lot of dynamic evidence. There's not a whole lot of, like following the path of the arsonist. That's kind of how I feel. I feel like his character is a unique character for him. I think that generally he plays very kind of charismatic, almost like bro-ish type characters, like Blackbird. If you saw the beginning of Blackbird, right? I mean, he's very much an alpha male kind of drug dealer, and then he's a little bit humbled, when he's in prison, but then of course he comes out and he's back to his old self again. Here he tries to play someone who's a little bit more ordinary man, can we say, who's got a little bit of a inferiority complex or some type of issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say he definitely pulls it off, but not without his own flair that you kind of see underneath. Like, the guy's charisma is kind of bubbling out, and he has to kind of stuff it back down, sometimes. Like he definitely, he's married, he's been married previously, and I think that marriage does a very good job of kind of showing him to just be like this common, everyday government civil servant, and the frustrations that he feels kind of in that relationship. But then he goes out and he seems to actually be picking up very, very attractive women, which is kind of the opposite of what this character is supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of like the Taron Egerton, I guess, charisma, bubbling out. Like, if this guy is such an everyday, common, overlooked man, why is he picking up such hot women? Kind of whenever he goes out. That's, I guess, a dichotomy that I haven't really reconciled, but I don't think it really detracts from the show. I think your analysis is spot on, and I agree with you. It's hard to say that this is a must subscribe, but certainly it's worth watching on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah. But shall we talk about what's going on next week?
Yeah, you've rolled the virtual die this week. What have you given to us?
So next week you are on Netflix watching a comedy called The Residence, and I am picking up the virtual slack in the sense that this is a show you were not able to watch, so I took it on my side. I'm watching House of David on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Pete, before we sign off for the week, can you read off our YouTube and other social media creds so that folks can launch, subscribe, add comments, random discourse, etc., etc.?
Absolutely, guys. Our list is dangerously low, so please message us. Please let us know what other shows you want to know, but you want to know about, but you're not particularly keen on watching yourselves. We will do the hard work for you. Leave a comment below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to hit that notification bell.
Okay. One last thing we should make a note of. The season 3 of Foundation is out.
That's right.
But we love season 1. We love season 2. Season 3, I think episodes 1 and 2 have just dropped on Apple TV Plus, if you're interested in that. Public service announcement, free of charge. All right. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. Pete, as always, much appreciated. We will see everyone next week, same time, Films and Stuff podcast. Thanks all.
Thanks, Ethan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye now.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Films and Stuff. If you haven't already, please subscribe and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever podcasts are downloaded. Films and Stuff. There is no substitute.